Hey, what's going on, everybody? Steve here, Rake in Profit. I'm here with my buddy Pat, and we're going to be talking reselling. We're going to be talking about how Pat literally went from $10,000 in sales, which is a mystery to me, how he went to 225 in 1 year in 2020. We're going to get some updates upon what he's doing in his business, how he literally 20x'd his business. I'm very, very curious. Pat was in the restaurant industry for 20 years. So he's got a lot of business experience. He also has a YouTube channel as well, which I've linked down below in the description. And I just found out behind the scenes that Pat featured me in one of his videos back in 2019. So I made the cut. I got there, number 8.
Yeah. It's when I first, it's funny because I wish I could. YouTube is tougher than reselling. I wish I could turn 10,000 into 200,000 on, but that's a lot harder. Back in when I first started doing YouTube, in January 2019, I was like, well, I had closed down the restaurant because I actually had cancer a couple years ago, and unfortunately, the timing of that and thinking of, I've been a part-time reseller on eBay since 1998. I always used to call myself like a hobbyist seller, where I would sell things for extra money or vacation money, and sometimes I'd have even customers come in because I had a little sign in our foyer that I'll sell stuff on commission. That's why if you look at my eBay store, it says I've sold from baseball cards to bulldozers, because I one time sold a bulldozer. And
what did that sell for, a bulldozer?
It was $5,000. Yeah, it was an older bulldozer, and we delivered it on a flatbed. And luckily, it was only had to be delivered about an hour and a half away. But the price that we sold it at I basically did a 10% commission with the guy that owned it. And you know what? It was basically 3 hours worth of work, and I made $500. Now, since then, I don't sell anything on commission because people's expectations are always different. What they think stuff is worth, and then when you don't sell it at that, they're kind of disappointed because they think they're going to get 100% full price on what they paid for it. And that's not how it works out, unless it's like collectibles. Like I sold one guy that was moving to Florida, $7,000 worth of sports memorabilia, and he got more than he thought he was going to get. And I did good on that. I was selling some graded cards and stuff like that. But hey, Katie, I know Katie. There's Katie.
You can see the people coming in on the comments right now. Let's see who we got in the house right here. What's going on, Katie Reeds? We got Steve, NC Treasure, Marilyn, AA, Deborah. Got a bunch of people watching. But it's funny how you're talking about the consignment, because you even watch like Craigslist hunters videos, or like if you go to pawn shops, like people will be like, well, it's worth 100. Can I get 80? Can I get 90? And it's like, well, we have to make some money as well. And people don't get that,
No, and the time and the effort, and it's funny because when I was a teen, I worked at a diner as a dishwasher, and the chef there used to do baseball card shows. And I remember one time we used to go and buy packs of baseball cards from the local store and sit there and sort them in between cooking. Hey, Craig, thanks for stopping. And I remember he said, Pat, we're going to go to some guy's house and buy a card. And I remember he bought the card for like $100, but I looked it up in the book later on, and it said it was worth $300. And at the time I thought, oh my, he ripped the guy off, not fully understanding what near mint meant and what the value and what he was going to have to do to it and sell it and take the risk. And it really was my first start of learning sort of entrepreneurship and restaurant and learning how to be a reseller and those type of things that goes way back to when I was a teenager.
So you were in the restaurant industry for 20 years. While you were running your restaurant, first off, what type of restaurant was it, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, when I first started out as a regular employee, I was working in family style diners, and then the opportunity came up to get involved with a Subway franchise, and we did the Subway franchise as managers. And they had closed some down, and they came to us and said, hey, Pat, there's a store closed down that, the owner wasn't running it right. Would you want to buy it? And I was like, well, we're going to have to, but we did it. And we got our foot in the door for $30,000. I turned around and sold that location 8 years later for $250,000, and took out another 200,000. So I turned that 30,000 into about $500,000.
And that was a Subway franchise store.
Yeah. So we did Subway for as owners for 8 years. And then we turned around and bought a family style diner in our town that we live in. And we did good for the first 4 or 5 years, but over time, as business model changed and competition came along, and unfortunately, I got sick a couple years ago and had to go through cancer treatment. And we just made the choice to. It was better off to close it down because we were in a seasonal area. But over the course of 17 years, having owned 4 different places, 3 Subways and the restaurant, and we did own multiple Subways at the same time. I employed 800 people, so I had a business background. I mean, the most we ever did one year was about $800,000 in the restaurant business.
Wow.
So I was used to having money in my hands all the time, and this was much different being a reseller that. Having to list things and wait for payment and things like that. And but the problem is with my health had happened was I was like, well, what am I going to do? Because the minute that I go to somebody and say, hey, look, I can't lift 35 pounds for 8 hours a day, they don't want to be bothered. So I basically, what happened was I had typed in the type of cancer that I was going through. Hey, Chris, thanks for stopping, buddy. Appreciate it. I buy shit. He's a reseller. Buys a lot of stuff and supports different channels. He comes on channels that I'm involved in. Nice guy. And I was like, well, what am I going to have to do full time? And I stumbled upon the bearded picker, Scott. And I know you know him because you've met him, I think, in Texas.
I met him in Austin. Yeah, good guy.
So his wife went through the same cancer that I did, and he invited me onto a show to talk about that. And then he's like, hey, Pat, you got to start making your own videos. And one of the very first videos was the one that I had been watching you and Casey reminded me of. I looked at you guys as like a Tony Robbins that could inspire people, but more so wasn't really about maybe the grime and the dirt, but more so about inspiring people and teaching. And that was the perception that I had on you guys 3 years ago. Now it's funny because since then, I've talked to you in the chat, but you're always friendly and you don't know who is who. And you've said hello before in the past, but Casey's been on my show, and probably about out of those 10, probably about 50% of those people now have been on my channel that I've done stuff with on YouTube.
Oh, really cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah. The community, it's amazing how the community really comes together and how we all are able to interact and help each other. And I always say this, Pat, in previous videos of mine, if it wasn't for the reselling community, I would have probably quit reselling 8 years ago, just like I had quit everything in my life. And that's, before reselling, I used to quit everything. When you find a bunch of like-minded people like yourself, it's really easy to inspire each other and keep each other going and keep each other accountable.
Well, I'll be on, and not to plant a negative, but you learn, just like in any business, that over the last 3 years, there are some people that aren't meant to do YouTube, aren't meant to be resellers, and they're like, negative. Oh, sure, you can do this. Oh, and you just got to learn to weed them out and focus on the people that I've met people outside. It's funny. I've met people through YouTube, but don't do YouTube and are very successful. I mean, I followed up on a Facebook ad one day. A guy was selling DVDs. And he had a beautiful house. He said, come to my house. I'm like, all right. And he had a big, like 4-car deep garage. And he told me the story how his father-in-law lent him $5,000 15 years ago. And he's now doing $3 million selling on eBay and Amazon. He said his margins are low, but he's doing, he's making $450,000 a year working for himself.
Did you find out what he was doing?
Yeah, I did. But, it's one of those things. And even with YouTube, you don't want to come across as you're trying to be a user or you just want all, I find that sometimes people just want okay, well, tell me what you got, tell me what you're selling, and that's it. They don't want to sort of do the work behind the scenes, or they want to, I would rather establish friendships first and then build that trust, and then you guys can work together. And you know, because it's tough, because I've seen it already where people have, for example, on Amazon, like, okay, go and buy this product for $2, you could sell it for 10, you'll double your money, and then before you know it, you know, a month in, everybody's selling it for $1 less than they paid.
You got to learn how to catch the fish. A lot of people just want you to throw the fish into their mouth and eat it. And unfortunately, yes, you could get lucky in this business. And, you know, I have it happen all the time. And people ask me someone was complaining the other day. I posted it on my Instagram. They're like, stop telling me what to do and show me how to do it. And it's like, listen, you've got to take a little bit from Pat, a little bit from Steve, a little bit from Casey, and you got to put it all together, and you got to put the recipe together and make it successful for yourself. Like, nobody can do it for you. So I agree. I mean, you got to learn how to fish, and it takes time. It's not easy to be successful in this business. There's no business that's easy.
Yeah. I mean, I've been friends with Scott, the bearded picker, for now 3 years. And there's never one product that he's told me or a private message me. He said, Pat, go and get this. There was one time I did reach out to him. It was funny, during the pandemic, where I was a little down because as the economy started opening back up, I noticed sales were down. And I said to him, man, I'm only up to like $9,000 this month, where the previous month I had done like $30,000. And he said, oh, I'm making a ton selling this item. And I was like, oh, really? They still sell? Now, he told me he was getting them at Costco. There was no Costco's in my area, but that didn't stop me, because I went to Dollar General and found a similar product. Well, that month I finished over $30,000, and that was enough of that 2-minute conversation to give me the push to go out there. Yeah. And people were paying a premium at the time for the product, and I finished strong in the month, and I was just so happy. And there's only been one person friends with Steve Alcorn. There's only been like 2 times that he said to me, Pat, if you could find this, it sells, but you can only buy it at certain stores. Everything else on my own. My business model has sort of been I don't like to buy things and sell at overinflated prices, because I feel like the longevity of that doesn't last. I like to buy stuff that basically the store is downsizing or doesn't want anymore, that when I sell it, I'm selling it at a competitive price with Target, Walmart, and Amazon. But yeah, I'm making a great markup because I bought it at a great price. Hey, Mr. Sadie, I got some friends coming by. Thank you guys for stopping. I do appreciate it. Mr.
Sadie is amazing. Mr. Sadie's been commenting on my videos for the longest time, and it's usually something to do with, hey, Bubba.
Yeah. he's a good guy.
So let's talk a little bit more about, let's maybe take a couple steps back. So Pat, let's talk a little bit about your business model. What platform are you selling on? Are you on Amazon, eBay, both, Facebook?
I sell on Amazon and eBay, and just recently launched my own website, thetravelingpicker.com. And I have a couple things on there. And that eventually is to hopefully through YouTube. And like, I even started now with eBay, putting in these thank you cards, so that when maybe people come by there and they come by my website and they buy, I've sold a couple things on there before, mostly just t-shirts and stuff like that. But right now, I sell 90% of my stuff is on Amazon, but I've been doing better. Like, and as your thumbnail said, back in when I closed the restaurant, it was 2018, and I was still going for surgery, radiation. And 2019 is a friend of mine got me interested in doing Amazon. I said, Amazon? I don't own Amazon. How you mean I'm Amazon? I said, oh, you mean work there in the warehouse? And the funny thing is, I did work there in the warehouse 2 years prior to that. After I was leaving my restaurant, I was working till 3 o'clock in the morning at an Amazon warehouse for one summer, and I used that money to go to Disney World. And I was like, wow, this is hard work, because you had to pick 240 items an hour, and I was doing 260. So when they explained to me, Scott and some outside people that aren't on YouTube, oh, I could do Amazon, I'm like, oh, okay. So when I first started out, I started out selling some books, and there was a couple things, and I did $10,000 on 2019. And I realized it wasn't enough money. So what I started doing that year also was Instacart, which is basically a grocery delivery service. And I was doing that in between, and it was still, Instacart was still relatively new back then in my area. So you could make some money doing it, meaning, $15 an hour, before deductions and stuff like that. So then all of a sudden, when the pandemic hit, and I heard a little bit, I thought about selling baseball cards, and I wanted to actually do a Patreon with baseball cards, but in other words, it would be sort of a break, and but I got some backlash from people on YouTube, and it like people are like, oh, you want to take? I'm like, no. For $10.99, you're gonna get a couple packs of cards. So all of a sudden, I was like, oh, what do I do? All of a sudden, when they said I was doing Instacart, and people were starting to order things I started seeing they couldn't find certain things. So I would go to other stores and I would like, oh, well, I could find that there. And then I started like this. Steve had said to me, hey, Pat, why don't you sell this hair dye? And this was like 3 months prior to the pandemic, but I couldn't sell it on Amazon. He goes, but you could sell it on eBay. Now it was a hair dye that you could buy for $4 and you could sell it for $10 and pretty much make $2. Well, all of a sudden, I had that listed on eBay, and I was able to list it on Amazon. And all of a sudden, those boxes were going. I couldn't sell 2 of them for $15 on eBay, but those boxes were going for $20, $25 a piece on Amazon.
Yep.
And when everything shut down, I said, uh-oh. I said, instead of me doing Instacart, I got something here, but I didn't have the capital to really go out and really buy a lot. Well, remember that I told you I have a friend that sells on Amazon, but he doesn't do YouTube.
Yep.
He calls me up and he says, Pat, he goes, I'm selling sanitizer and soap, but he goes, I can't sell it on there no more because they're coming down on people for price gouging. I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, some people are selling these bottles of sanitizer for $25, $30. I said, yeah, but they're only like $4. He goes, yeah, I know. He goes, so they're ruining it for everybody. He goes, would you want them? He goes, I can't risk my store. He goes, would you want to sell them? He goes, you might have another week. So I'm like, well, I don't want to. If you sell them at $8 a piece until you pay shipping, there's no money. So I said, well, I'll sell them by the case. So I was selling them for $75 a case, making $20 after fees, which when you do the math was roughly about $6.50 a bottle. Buy them wholesale at $3-4, and well, that's what I did. So I sold $2,000 worth in a week, and then all of a sudden it got shut down. So I had about 1,000 bottles of soap and sanitizer. And I said to the guy, I said, look, he goes, don't worry. When you sell them, you give me the money. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do with them now? I had no place to sell them. So what I did is I live in the Poconos. I drove an hour south of where I originally was from, and I went door to door to businesses. I went to gas stations.
No way.
Yeah. And I said, hey, would you be interested in buying sanitizer? It's hard to find. And I said, I'll sell. I'll take a case or two. Well, let me tell you, I had people calling me up. I said, look, I'm going to come back down one more time. I sold $7,000 in a week worth of sanitizer.
Oh my God. How did you wait? Let me stop you really quick, because this is a really important moment right here. Most people, they get hit with an obstacle. A listing gets shut down. They get kicked off a platform. Something happens. You had your situation. You couldn't sell this. How in the world, Pat, did you come up with the idea to go knock on business owners' doors?
Well, I know myself as a business and having the background of wanting things and buying things. And I thought about convenience gas stations that there's going to be, I know myself, like you couldn't really find it at Dollar General. You couldn't find it at Walmart, but people would come in and buy a pack of cigarettes, Lotto, or get their gas, and they see a bottle of sanitizer. Hey, if I sell it to the guy for $4 or $5, he's going to be able to sell it for $8 or $10. He's going to automatically double his money, and he's going to make money. How could you say no?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one guy, it got to the point, hey, Donatella, thanks for coming by. It got to the point where people were calling me up. Do you have any more? So I called the guy. The guy said to me, well, Pat, he goes, I don't want to, because it was a van full. and I didn't have a van. I had it loaded in my car. And people paid me right away. There was no checks or credit card. It was cash. And so I met with the guy, and I gave him $1,000. And over the course of 2 weeks, I made profit. I sold over $11,000 worth of soap and sand and made $7,000 because the guy that sold them to me sold me at wholesale. I took that money because I didn't pay him right away. I took that money and turned it into $100,000 in 9 weeks selling on Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I had done $55,000 in the month of April. And Scott, it was funny because I had posted, everybody's always showing, and I did it a little bit out of revenge and a little bit of a smart ass, because back in February when I was trying to do my Patreon with the baseball cards, another YouTuber had called me lazy and said, "Oh, look at Pat Dees. These people are lazy. They don't want to do the work. They just want to take people's money." And that had stuck in my brain knowing that what I had done in 9 weeks, $100,000, that I did more than what that guy did. And I posted it up on Instagram like, "Hey, I did 55,000. And Scott saw it and said, "Scott, you beat me." He said to me, "Pat, you beat me that month." And he had been selling on Amazon for like 5 years. And that month though was long. There was 15 that year, Steve, I had went to 800 stores because everything after that was RA.
Wow.
And it was so hot back then. I had, in that 9 weeks that I did that 100,000, I'll tell you basically what I was selling. I was selling, and people afterwards have said to me, "Well, Pat, what are you going to do when you can't sell puzzles or yeast?" I said, "Puzzles or yeast?" I said, "That's not what I'm selling." I said, I sold $18,000 worth of hair dye. I was selling throat lozenges. Those two things represented approximately $35,000. I would go to a store and find like the coldies. I would find the coldies, and by the time I left the parking lot, all of them would be sold. And where you really were making money was when people were buying multiples, because the way that I priced my stuff on Amazon, like I would sell a box of like coldies for $15, and it was costing me, let's say, $8. But that includes shipping. But there were people that buy 5 of them. There were people that I think were because the hair salons got shut down. I think they were doing it in their garage, but they couldn't get from their wholesalers, so they were buying 3-4 cases for me. And me and my wife had a full-time job. We would be up putting cardboard around and I wasn't prepared with boxing and shipping supplies, because I went from doing 10,000 to doing 100,000 in 9 weeks, and all that because you couldn't send stuff into Amazon. So then all of a sudden I'm scrambling to Sam's Club looking for bubble mailers. I'm getting a hold of Uline, trying to get boxes within a day or two. And the busiest weekend I had, I did $10,000. It was April 15th, 2020. That weekend I did $10,000 Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. When I went to the post office, I had something like 400. They got mad at me.
What did they say?
"Oh, do you have a scan sheet?" I'm like, "Well, no." And at the time, I really didn't know what exactly the scan.
I don't know what that is either.
Well, the scan sheet is basically a sheet that you could, if you have 200 orders, it combines it all on one, and they scan that, and it will automatically accept all 200 packages. So they individually don't have to do it one by one.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I was filling those big rolly things out in the parking lot. Like there was one day I filled up 3 of those. That month I had done 2,500 orders that month.
Wow. And for people who don't understand what's going on, Pat was selling as a merchant on Amazon, which is essentially the same thing as an eBay seller. You store all the inventory at your house, you pick it, you pack it, you ship it. Amazon does give you a little compensation for the shipping as well. But that's a lot of work. I mean, imagine for everybody watching, like if you had to ship out 400 eBay items, it's that is a ton of work, man. Well, you sound like the least lazy person. So whoever that person was with the comment, you know what? They could kiss.
Yeah, and you know, that's unfortunate about YouTube, because you learn that you know, don't listen to any, other people that will just try to knock you. Don't even know, they don't, you know, they don't want to hear your story, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah. You really got to have thick skin, and YouTube does make you stronger as a person, because whether you're online, the difference between the real world and online is everybody in the real world has opinions, but you don't really hear it. Like there's only a couple people around you that you see on a regular basis, unless you have a big network. But people chirp in the real life, but on the internet, I mean, they're behind the keyboard. It's 100 times amplified. And what I've learned on YouTube is, you just gotta, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in your vision, you gotta have thick skin, and you gotta rub it off. Some people don't know what you're doing. They don't understand what you're doing, but it comes down to your confidence, and you know what you're doing now, man. Like you have the results, like what works, but some people
Well,
might think you're crazy.
now Miss Q, MSQ, and what program software does a scan sheet? It's behind the scenes, that when you could go in through eBay and Amazon, and basically what it does is it takes all your packages that you've done that day, and you click it, and it prints off a scan sheet with like the barcode here. And when you scan that, it says, okay, that you have, it'll say on there 200 packages, and then they're supposed to verify that that's 200 together. One thing I will say too with Amazon, and I want to be full disclosure, because people, I'll answer this before someone asks, well, what did Pat make doing $200,000? Approximately 25-30% before deductions. That was my net. So that was about 50 grand that year, working out of my house. And there now, this past year, has my sales dropped? Yeah, of course. This past year, I only did about 135,000. Now you say, well, Pat, why did that happen? And a lot of that has to do with, honestly, the demand for things that I was selling in 2020 and the premium that people were paying. When people were paying $20 for hair dye, now it's only $10. So those margins aren't there for that. But did it stop me? Well, let me tell you, January and February of 2020, I only had done $1,000 a month. Then February, I had got 20, and then March, 30,000, then 55,000. And I had said to myself last year, well, so January and February of 2021, I averaged 10, 11,000 a month up until September. So I already had beat the year before, because keep in mind, January and February, I was only doing 1,000 a month. So I went from 1,000 to 10,000. Now, one thing I did notice, when the stimulus check stopped, the unemployment, September, sales went down. What I've started to do, and honestly, is listening to other friends and other YouTubers. I'm starting to sell more even on eBay. Donna, that's another I didn't mention, and that's not even included in that 200, because the 200,000 actually it's more like 225. Donna has a YouTube channel where she does auctions, so I go on there with Auctions for You, T, and I've sold about $6,000 worth of stuff doing YouTube auctions too. What I really have done this year is I'm a numbers guy. When you do business, so I have an Excel spreadsheet, like, what am I going to sell on Facebook Marketplace? I mean, that was the thing that you say, well, how did Pat do 100,000? Because the opportunity came to me and I didn't turn it down. That's really what it boils down to. That when that guy came to me with that sanitizer and soap, I could have said, nah, I don't want to be bothered. But I knew in my mind that there was going to be a demand, and that people could make money, double their money. Now, my son, and this is where I'm going with this. In November, he goes, Dad, he goes on Facebook, he goes, you see those McDonald's toys? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, those 50th anniversary toys are selling like, well, we made over $1,000 in November selling those 50th anniversary McDonald's toys. And I wish I would have jumped on it sooner, because if you looked on eBay, I've seen sellers sold in that month, Steve, sold 5,000 to 7,000 of them at $3 to $5 a piece. People, there's one seller that I think I did a video on it. There's one seller that made $35,000-$40,000 just selling Disney toys that month. So when the opportunity is there, you have to grab it. I just am working on something right now where a guy, a friend of mine, Brian, he goes by the name Mr. Buys a Lot. He buys a lot bulk deals. So he has all these signs, these business signs. And he's like, well, I'm moving my warehouse. What am I going to do with them? And I said, well, maybe I could. So he said, he lays out a price, and he says to me, Pat, I said, Brian, I said, I can't give you all that money at one time. I don't want to take that risk. He said, don't worry about it. We'll work something out. Well, Friday, I drove 3 hours to Lancaster and Allentown and filled a 15-foot box truck, picking up air mattresses and all these signs. And I rented a pod. And so I'm going to be busy with the next 2 or 3 months, So even though 2020 was like, people can say, oh, well, that was just 1 year. I'm constantly looking for opportunities to get this to where I can, maybe I don't need to do 200, 250,000, because it's not always what you do, it's what you make and what you can save and what you can do with that. My goal is to basically make, honestly, if I could make $50,000 as a reseller, you know how many people go to college to get a job to make $50,000? That's pretty damn good.
And be locked up in a cubicle and have a boss screaming down your throat.
Right. And then if I need to go to the doctor, or if I want to pick up, I'm a person that, I'm going to be 50 next month, and I like to pick up and go down to Florida, and I like Disney World. So if I want to go, I don't have to worry no more. Like when I had a restaurant, I had to constantly worry about stuff like that. I want to be able to go down and that's where I can, with the traveling picker, because I have gone out and met with other channels, and I traveled I put on 26,000 miles last year.
Oh man, you were putting in work on the road. Okay.
The year before was 23,000 miles.
And you're in the Pocono. Is that in is the Poconos in Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I've been out there once for a Valentine's Day. Won't go into too much detail.
Well, it sounds like you made it out alive. So my friends, the Jeep Treasure Hunt with Jeebus, they have a big storage channel. And
Steven, I love his channel, man.
Oh,
his
yeah.
Channel, I've spent hours watching it lately. It's so, his personality is just so, I love it.
He is so smart, him and his wife, when it comes to YouTube. I recorded his wedding.
Really?
Yeah. There's a video out there, and I just was at his house about a month ago, and they have been so loyal to me, and that's sometimes the problem with YouTube is loyalty is sometimes can be very thin, and people seem to kind of move on, and they don't know you no more. It's funny because when I couldn't get a hold of you on Monday, because we were supposed to do the show Monday, I reached out to Casey. And I said, Casey, I said, do you know Steve? He goes, no, I haven't. He goes, yeah, I know. I haven't talked to him for 2 weeks. He goes, I don't know what's wrong. But he took my message. And there's a lot of times some people that, they move on. They don't want to be, and I want to, and I know this. Look, not everybody can be successful doing YouTube, but if you work hard and are a good businessman, most people can be successful being a reseller, and for me wanting to do YouTube, I just wanted to network and talk and hang out with people and show what I'm doing, make enough to make a van payment. I'm definitely not at that level yet, but I mean, I grow like 1,000 subs a year. Now, with that being said, the last 2 years, there were more, like when I was doing that $100,000 in 9 weeks, I wasn't doing hardly no YouTube because I was too busy.
Yep.
I was hustling. I mean, I had an assembly line I had to make up when I got these packages for, people don't realize you don't just throw hair dye in a bubble mailer and just mail it out. And if you don't have a box, what do you do? So what I did is I cut cardboard wedges, put on each side, put them in a bag, and then put them in a bubble mailer. And I tell you what, didn't have no problems. So we had to, until we got boxes in, we had to do that. And you got to keep in mind, I sold $18,000 worth of hair dye. So I sold about 800 and some boxes of hair dye.
So let me ask you, first of all, congrats, man, on your success. I recognize your ability to see an opportunity and go into it. And sometimes that's something I've struggled with in the past, where I have a really good opportunity in front of me. And sometimes it's hard for me to go all in with something. Especially growing up in a Jewish conservative family. I was always taught, like, don't take crazy risks, like, be safe, like, think things through. And sometimes you just got to go all in. So congrats on that. Let me ask you, because I'm just curious out of my own thoughts, how do you go all in on an opportunity when you go all in, it's like you can win big or lose, or lose big, excuse me. How do you just like dive into something fully? Like, what's your mindset around it when you see something, and like, have you
Well,
always been like that?
I got to give credit where credit's due. I can't take that all on me, because that guy had faith to trust me with basically $2,000 worth of product. I could have been some slimy guy and not paid him, but he had known me enough. So you got to have somebody sometimes. It's just like the guy that told me that his father-in-law lent him $5,000, and 15 years later he's doing $3 million. So the credit had to start out there, that someone had the faith in me to say, hey, Pat, here's an opportunity. Oh, and because of closing the restaurant and going through the cancer treatment, I didn't have the credit. Now, what did I do? What did I do to turn that in? People don't realize, when you sell on Amazon, you don't get paid for 3 weeks. So when I scaled that 7,000 into 100,000, do you know how hard it was for 9 weeks? I had product that I could buy, and you know what I did to scale the numbers up bigger? I didn't pay my mortgage for 2 months. I knew the opportunity existed. Even my wife's car payment, I knew the opportunity existed to flip products so fast. Meaning, as soon as I got it, sometimes by the time I got home, there was times that when I would sell 200 items in a day, they were listed a couple hours ago. So I knew. So what I knew when I was waiting for my first payment, I remember when I got my first payment of $22,000, automatically $6,000 had to come off of that to catch up my bills.
Yeah.
But it worked.
Yeah.
And I knew that, because this is what I said to my wife. I said, if we pay the mortgage, there's going to be $100 late fee. But if I could take that $1,200 mortgage payment and double it in buying product at the time, who cares about the $100 late fee? And that's exactly how I did it. And I mean, it was nice, because I was then receiving, you had to adjust, because you'd get that week that maybe you'd have an off week. Let's say if you'd only do 3,000, and people don't realize what happens with Amazon is, when you sell on there, let's say you have $15,000 coming to you. Out of that money, whatever I sell the next week, the shipping is going to get deducted. So if you think you're counting on $15,000 coming next week in your payoff, because you get paid every 2 weeks, you're not going to get, because if you sell $5,000 and your shipping is $2,500, automatically your payment's going to be $2,500 less. So you got to put that, again, numbers in your mindset of what you're going to do. Now that I've got it to the point where I'm averaging $10,000 a month, I can know, people don't realize, though, when you do 10, you got to have a lot of people make this mistake in business. I remember this in the restaurant business. You do 10,000 a month, and let's say your profit's 2,500. Well, that doesn't mean that you got to go and blow an extra 2,500. You got to leave capital to put more inventory.
Yeah.
But that is the tricky part, is buying inventory that is going to move. I mean, because we all take the risk that sometimes you make bad buys. Sometimes you buy things, and I made some buys in 2020, Steve, though, that at the time I remember going into Walmart and buying the Pioneer Woman can openers, and I bought them for $5 a piece, right? And people were selling them for $10 a piece. Well, do the math. There was nothing to be made.
Yeah.
It was funny, because when I went out in the garage about 9 months ago, and I find these, I list them up there for $20. Boom, sold them within a day. And so sometimes when you get a clearance item that is basically being clearanced at, let's say, 400 Walmarts, sometimes you got to sit on that. The value of that product sometimes is like putting money in a certificate of deposit, holding it. I have a toy right now that I bought for $4. It normally sells for $18 at Walmart. At Christmas time, I was getting $25 for that toy. So I was more, after fees, I was more than doubling my money, which is a great return on, because typically on Amazon, on a lot of things, if you net 15 or 20% after expenses, that's considered pretty good. So if you can net 100% after expenses, so sometimes you got to be willing to sit on things.
Yeah. I have a buddy of mine. He did over 7 figures last year. And I think this year he did over 7 figures as well. His name's Jameson. He's been on my channel. He does a lot of purchasing of different games and different toys, and he'll sit on them for a year. Now he has the capital, and obviously that's not for everybody, but you're so right, Pat. There's a lot of toys. There's a lot of board games. There's a lot of different types of items that once they get discontinued and they're gone, if you wait a year or two, some of these things explode in prices. You obviously got to do your research, read the Keepa charts, know what you're doing, but big opportunities in that stuff for sure.
And, for me, I remember buying a Star Wars toy, and I said to myself, $5. I'm like, man, at Walmart, that would be like $15-20. And I bought it last year. I couldn't sell them. I must have been gated or the listing or whatever. When I listed them this past Christmas, they were going for $25 a piece, and I sold them all. So, people will say, well, how did you, it takes time to, to get, and then also go through the process of how to get ungated. Everybody always wants the easy answer. And and just to be clear, it's hard work. Yeah. I don't have no credit cards. I use no credit cards at all. And I've only ever borrowed $2,000 from Amazon, and that was 6 months ago. They did the automatically based on what you sold, 11%. And I said, oh, okay, I'll take it. And the only reason I did it is because the plan is in the future is if they offer, because there are opportunities that exist on certain windows, meaning October 15th to December 15th is an excellent window. So if you have the opportunity, for example, to go out and buy, let's say 10 hot items that sell, and I'm not talking premium items like chasing down a PlayStation 5. I'm talking about buying $10 items that you can make 50% after fees on top of. So if you have the opportunity to use capital, then I want to get it to the point where I basically sell enough to make 80% of my income at Christmas time, and the rest of the year, like I'm doing more of the eBay, the picking, the YouTube stuff during the summer. It's very hard to do YouTube in the winter where I live because those opportunities just don't exist as far.
Let me ask you, Pat, what advice would you give to people now who want to get started selling on Amazon, where a lot of things are gated? There are a lot of restricted brands and categories. That's why I always recommend people get started selling books, because you can sell most books. Obviously, there's some popular textbooks that are gated and whatnot. There's a good amount of board games you can sell. But a lot of the toys and a lot of the brands that we're familiar with, you're going to be gated off on. So what advice would you give to someone wanting to start Amazon as a beginner in 2022?
Well, and I'm watching the chat briefly, plus trying to pay attention to you. What I will say, and please, I don't want to make it sound like this is easy. You got to keep in mind, I sold when those 9 weeks, I sold over 9,000 orders. So I had a proof, and that's why and people say 3 weeks. Why are they holding the money? You need to prove yourself, because what happens if it comes to find out I didn't deliver half that stuff? So I earned that ungated opportunities, because as I fulfilled orders in a timely manner and did that, that's where I got to where I could sell a lot of things now. As far as starting out, I would say go. First of all, go it slow. I see a lot of people and that have the opportunity, and I hear stories that, the wife wants something to do, the husband makes good money, and she goes out and buys one item of $15,000 worth of one item.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. I was just talking to another Amazon recently, and she told me she bought a $60 item that sold for one, and she was supposed to make like $30. Amazon got on it. Now she's stuck with all these $60 items. Don't do that. Like, don't do your research. Compare. Don't just compare to Amazon. Compare prices to Target, Walmart. Because of that, Amazon wants to be competitive and not be the place that's, charging 25 when everybody else is charging 15. Like I go to a place like last year I bought two stores that closed down, Modell's and Gorsham's. That price was so great that even if half the stuff doesn't sell, it doesn't matter. I was buying $50, $60 baseball bats for $5.
You can't lose on something like that. You're getting it so discounted.
No, Baron, when Pat sold those first 7,000, were they all shipped by him or FBA? 7,000 items, I will say 6,800 were shipped by me, because when it came down to it, Amazon said you could not send in things that were not essential.
Yeah, they shut it all down.
They shut it down.
Time.
Yeah. So that I couldn't. So, but you know what? I liked it because I was able to control the speed. I didn't have to wait for it to be checked in. And man, I'll tell you, I feel like I'm a better person mentally when I keep myself busy. It was so. I remember like sometimes on Sunday, like being busy at the restaurant, the day would go so fast. And then like Monday would be like, oh man, when's this day going to, those days, my wife didn't always like me because I would get a little testy when we're busy doing the FBM, because she'd be up at 2:00 in the morning, kind of helping me. And there were days I only got 4 hours of sleep. But the money was good.
That's exciting though, man. That's exciting.
How were the returns?
Yeah, good question.
Out of 10,000 that year, 2020, we're talking 20 returns.
People, you remember, guys, it was hard for people to get these physical items, so they're not going to return it and give it up. They don't know if they'll ever get it again, right, Pat?
Right. Yeah. And what I liked about it, is that, especially things that people use, they're not going to be like 2 months later, hey, can I return this hair dye? I had like 2 or 3 people said, oh, I used the clipper and it's not cutting good no more. And I said to him, well, if you registered on, WA, the cutting brand, they will actually, and there was like Amazon paid, I think paid 2 customers through an A to Z claim, like, just to keep them happy.
We got a question. What kind of storage unit are you using to store all of this? What kind of system to keep track of inventory that you're holding on to? That's a good question, man, because you had so many items for sale. The thing is, all your stuff was selling so quick, but like, how did you store it and keep track of it?
Steve, there's where what I talked about, the toys, big deal, 20 toys. I have a 1,600 square foot house, so I have a finished basement. That's where I'm at right now in my office. So I have storage there, and I have a 2-car garage. But that's only a couple things. That 2020, as I said, as I was leaving the parking lot, that stuff was sold. That's how I stopped doing Instacart because of it. It was so instead of me making 15, I was doing $3,000 days.
How did that feel? Like, how did that feel? Like you go in, you buy 30, 40 items and they're all sold by you get into like, what's that feel like?
Good.
You must have been on a freaking roller coaster of a high. You must have just been like, that's crazy.
Well, it's going back to when the restaurant was successful and busy, and you're getting that cash in your pocket and having that, and knowing that, like, even I said to myself, wow, it felt good to be back in the game, to be back to, when you're a boss and you have 800 employees and people are coming to you and you're doing fundraisers and giving back. And I used to host Christmas parties for our employees and customers and do a lot of things. And in reselling, you don't get to do a lot of that stuff. Yeah. I've participated in YouTube on some charity auctions and have done things. And like Mr. Sadie pointed out, I've even given out free sanitizer and my friend Donna, I sent her some stuff for her girls, and no, for me it feels great to be successful. I mean, I grew up on welfare and didn't have good family, and to be successful and make your own way doing it legitimately without turning to demons is always to me a good feeling. And to me, losing the restaurant was very hard. It was actually harder than going through cancer. And I want this to be successful, being a reseller, YouTube person, because I want to say, you know what, even though I got kicked in the pants and lost $500,000 doing that, I want this to through hard work, that you still can bounce back as a person and use that business background to you know, be, and it doesn't, you don't have to make $1 million a year. Honestly, just make enough to pay your bills, keep, you know, and I've been with my wife since I'm 16. We're happy as that part, and go to Disney once a year, and I've never bought myself a new car. I bought my wife a new car because she would have the kids in the car, you know, where they always want her to be safe and stuff. But I don't send a whole, and that's the model that I'm using right now. I'm still 90% FBM. So only 10% of my stuff goes FBA.
And what's your main reason for that? Because I'm 100% FBA. I do know
the turnover, Steve. In other words, I don't like that I wait 3 weeks for stuff to get checked in. When I find something at a hot price that I feel that I can sell, I always feel that I have competition out there that also could be finding it. And then 3-4 weeks down the road, they're tanking it. I feel like the person that doesn't want to ship, I feel like I have a 3-week lead on that person. So if I do the math, if I'm selling 10,000, I could sell $7,000, $8,000 worth of product before they sell one.
Yeah, I think that works for you. You and I have completely different business models, because I'm sourcing a lot of one-off, discontinued, rare, hard to come across items. And I know when I do OA and RA a little bit, one of the things I hate is, because I do all FBA, is I ship in an item and it's selling for 25. I'm going to make, you know, 50% ROI. And by the time it checks in a week or two, whatever, 3, you never know, the price is tanked. So exactly. I agree, man. That makes sense. I don't do your business model that much though, but if I do in the future, more of it, I'll probably start to try some of that some more, because that makes complete sense to me, man. Like that price that you want to get, it just dwindles. And then like a year later, it's way back up 50% higher.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had, I'll give an example. I had a game that was selling hot, and I could only find it at 1 or 2 places, and I basically could double my money. So I as quick as I was getting that was a good Christmas item this year for me. But now there are some things, like for example, like soap or grocery items that I know is not going to fluctuate in price. I've sent those in for like, it's nice to I don't want to be 90%, just to be clear, I don't want to be 90% FBM. I want to be more like 50-50, because I love looking at, like the other day I had $340 in sales, and I'm like, oh geez, dreading it. Like, okay, I'm gonna have to do about.
And how are you gonna travel doing FBM? You're not.
Well, right, exactly. Then that has happened. I had it when I went down to Florida flew down there for 3 days, and for 3 days I didn't have sales. As soon as I turned the switch back on, it went back. But I like the ability. Like now, I'm selling some things. I am selling more FBA, but I don't want to. I want it that the ranking is so good, and that even if it sells, you know, a lot of people won't mess with $5 items. I don't care. If I sell 1,000 of that item and I make $2,000, and they're shipping it, and it's the right price, and it's got like a 4,000 ranking.
Oh yeah.
Why am I not gonna? You know, I mean, I want to build Amazon to a point where I make 25,000 a year on core staple items, and then everything
replenishables.
Everything after that's extra. But I don't want all my eggs in one basket. That's why I've upped. Like I'm selling about $1,000 a month in eBay right now, where back in 2020 I was only selling $250 a month. So I'm upping my game more on eBay. I like eBay in certain aspects, and I'm doing my website, and so I'm really trying to. I wanted to get it to be that I can honestly make 25,000 from 3 different sources, not from just one. And I don't, those numbers, and I'm not on here saying, oh, you could be a millionaire doing Amazon. I'm not on here to say that. $75,000 would be fine for me. And I could still do fine, pay the bills, save some money. And you know, being self-employed, there's a lot of things that you can do that people don't understand. You know, I mean, you know, Roth IRAs and things like that to not, even if you make 50, 60,000, doesn't mean you pay taxes on 50, 60,000. You know, you $5,000 in your IRA, you deduct your business miles, you know.
So we're getting to the end of the time here, and I want to ask you a couple more questions that I'm really curious about. We're gonna have to get you on for an update if you're open to it, or I could even come on your channel sometime. Just let me know, man. Let's build this relationship long term. But what I want to ask you is, what are your goals, Pat, for 2022? Like, if let's just say tomorrow was the first day of 2023 and you were looking back on 2022, what do you want to happen? Like, I know you're mentioning some numbers and figures, but walk us through that real quick in a minute or two. Like, what do you want to see happen?
Well, I'm diversifying. So I've already made steps to basically not just depend on Amazon, sell on, you know, sell on my website, sell on eBay. So the diversification, that's really the big thing for me. I mean, I like to grow my YouTube channel some and make a little bit from that, and just really, I mean, I don't have crazy expectations. If I can basically do 200,000 this year, and if you mix it up, doing it the right way, you can still make $75,000 off of 200,000. And there's plenty of examples of. There's a guy I just found called Golden State Picker. He's out in California. And he shows examples, and that's what I like about YouTube is you can watch other people and learn, and don't be afraid to open your eyes to. I mean, sometimes I'd be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe someone's making that money selling that," and that's what I like is it really opens the mind to. Because I used to be in the beginning like, "What am I going to sell? I only know like baseball cards and lunch boxes," you know, and that's where you got to open up your mind. And I mean, I picked up 400 pairs of shoes 8 months ago. The same guy with the sanitizer says to me, Pat, I need space in the warehouse. He goes, these ones are slow moving right now. He goes, this is what, you know, I want for him. And I'm like, I can't pass that deal.
Can I ask you a question actually? Cause you buy bulk and stuff. I have sorry, something fell over. I have a guy who wants to sell me 5,000 ink cartridges right now. I've sold a lot of ink. But you know how the ink comes in the boxes, or sometimes it comes like in the foils or just like wrapped up individually. A lot of these are like in the foils and whatnot. So they're not in the boxes, but they are brand new. They came from a really, really large company who they're just moving on. And what's your experience selling ink? Do you have any experience with that, and any advice that you can give me on
the
this
ink?
deal?
The ink that I have sold and it's I've been selling is usually clearance from Walmart. Now with eBay, you can sell expired ink. And typically what I sell is Hewlett Packard or Canon ink.
These are all HPs. Yeah, all of them are I literally have the entire manifest like here. Like there's a ton.
Yeah.
They're all HP.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of those things that, and this is where like me going in a little skeptic. Are these knockoffs? Are these HP?
It's a friend of mine. I know this guy. I know this guy well. I've gone to like business conferences with him. He's known in the community, but
will he stand behind it if it comes out that you know 10 people say, whoa, wait a minute. These are in other words, let's say there's a plastic piece that's broken and explode. So, you know, and it's not that you don't want to be, but you gotta run this stuff through your mind.
Good advice.
And at the end of the day, if he doesn't want them, price is price. I mean, if you're selling, if these are selling for $10 a piece, you know, is he willing to part with them at $2 a piece?
And let me ask you, the thing is, some of these are like, some of them are expired, like in 2020. Some of them aren't, but like some of these things are going for like, you know, only $6 or $7 each because people are bundling them because they're like not the hottest. Other ones are going for 10 or $12. And he was asking initially for $3 per. And I'm just like, with the shipping rates of media mail now, a first class mail, sometimes it could be $4 to $6.
Right.
So even if I pay $2, I'm up to $8 and plus fees. It's like, and some of these things don't move as fast as you think. Like
right.
I have,
and
one,
that's the key. You know, let's say the retail value is 10,000, and he's coming to you at 3,000. Well, you got to figure your time, the expense, the throwaways, the stuff that's not going to sell, and you know, and here's a little harsh advice. Sometimes you got to pass deals that don't make sense.
Yeah, I feel like I really couldn't pay more than $1 per cartridge, 5,000 for this deal, just
Right.
because like there's just too many unknowns. I literally have, like, I'm not even kidding, like 60 different SKUs. And you know, some of the SKUs I have 244, 240, 230, 237, 210, 215. And it's like, how long is it going to take to get rid of that SKU? Like, I have no doubt that I can get rid of it, but like you were saying, man, you got to think about your time. You got to think about
the in this, I would honestly, it'll probably take a year or two to sell those.
I think it would take a couple of years to get rid of those. Right. For sure.
So could you take that same, let's say $5,000 and turn that twice this year on something else where you go 5 to 10, and if you took the 10 to 20, and at the end of the day, this is a business. It's not always about friendship. This is a business, and you don't want to hurt somebody. At the end of the day, what's he going to do? If he doesn't want them, let him sell them to somebody else. And if he wants to throw them away, well, if you're going to throw them away, you know what? Give them to me, and we'll work out a deal where every week I'll when I sell some, I'll PayPal you money.
Yeah, you don't want to be emotional about it, and that's the way I am. I've done quite a few big deals with wholesalers and resellers and just people in my network, and for me, it has to be a win-win. Like if you and I were ever to do a deal, Pat, like I want to be happy, but I also want you to be happy. So I'm always honest in terms of what I could pay and whatnot. But you're right. You got to do your research. And a lot of times people, they think too optimistic about a deal. Like you almost have to be negative in a sense and think like, what are all the things that could go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be like when the 400 pair of shoes, let me tell you, shoes is a 30% return rate. But when the price is so good and you've done business with this guy before, and we're talking like this guy is so good to me. I mean, let me tell you something. I rented a U-Haul to go pick up the shoes. You know what he did for me? He gives me a box of Air Jordans that I could sell right away to pay for the U-Haul.
No freaking way.
This is a guy that is 31 years old. I'm old enough to be his father. And that's what I'm talking about, networking, that a guy, we were at Longhorn Steakhouse the other day. And of course, I mean, I offered him money and I paid for his lunch, but he has given me so much. Here's a guy that wants to help somebody and you know, he's successful. And sometimes just little things like that, I don't know, this guy that, you know, giving you $1,000 worth of ink. And let's be honest, if you sell $3,000 worth of ink in 3 months, you're easily going to, hey, you know, here, Larry, here's $1,000. But you know, sometimes some people are good salesmen, and this is a business, and you got to look out for you. I remember, and I know that we're at the end of the show, but I remember when I worked in a beer distributor I used to run, and I was a kid. Really? I used to run a beer distributor, and the guy had a mini mall across and I remember a tenant going. She was a laundromat tenant. She goes, he's rich. I said, oh, because he's rich, he's supposed to give you free rent? Because she was him and hawing about paying her rent on time. So sometimes, even though, and I see you as a successful person, sometimes people want to take advantage of that and be like, oh, well, you can afford it, this and that. But you can't make too many dumb moves, because sometimes those things you could be paying for it. You know, like you can't. There's where I talked about part of the show is don't be like, well, you know, I got a $15,000 credit card and somebody comes along with me, you know, with ink or shoes, and okay, you know, the guy said they're worth $50,000. I don't care what they say they're worth. Don't jump on the first thing. Do your homework. And guess what? If someone picks up on it, this happened to me with a Subway. A guy bought a Subway. He fired everybody. His business went down 40%. He paid like $140 for the Subway. He goes to me, I want $140 or $160. And I'm like, you
your business is nothing.
I said, no, I'll give you $100,000. He goes, no, I'm not going to take it. Guess what? 6 months later, he took $100,000.
Yeah.
I gave him $100,000. I got a 40% discount. He ruined it. I had to fix it. I turned around and sold that a year and a half later for close to $200,000.
Yeah, you have to value your time, and you have to understand what it's going to take to be successful, whether that's taking over a restaurant, or maybe in the example of the ink, or maybe in the
And you
example
can't
of
bail.
shoes.
You can't bail out people who make bad buys. If you are, they take a loss. That's on them.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Well, Pat, it was a pleasure talking with you. And, for everyone listening, I didn't really know Pat's story. And sometimes I like it to be a mystery and I get to find out live. I feel like I'm part of the audience, but I'm
Yeah, because
actually,
you didn't come into the green room till about 4 minutes prior, which I like because I've done this myself, and it's a natural chat to talk back and forth. And I'm hoping, honestly, Steve, and no pressure, is I'm hoping to honestly network. I see you wanting to do storage units, and you live in Connecticut now. I'm in Pennsylvania, and the opportunity comes up, and you say, "Hey, Pat, they're having a storage unit. You want to make some contact? Come up and maybe we could do something together, collab, and just I've had 800 employees. You've done a lot of things that I haven't done, and vice versa, and we can put our heads together and learn from each other."
well, I'll tell you, man, you're out in the Poconos, man. Like, I might have to bring the girlfriend out to the Poconos and show her the area. So that might be an excuse for us to get up and hit some Longhorn, man.
All right. You got a super chat from Donatella.
Hey, Donatella, thank you so much. Great show, gentlemen. Really appreciate that. And yeah, speaking of networking, man, I really want to spend more time networking. Sometimes I get so busy with businesses and I get stuck in the weeds. Sometimes, over the last couple of years, I've really forced myself to kind of put a wall up from people to get a hold of me, because sometimes I get very, very distracted. I'm kind of like a squirrel. And if I open up the floodgates, it's so easy for me to get distracted by everyone that I get nothing done. And then I'm unhappy. So for me, it's like, it's one of my struggles that I'm trying to figure out how to balance, like having a good big network, but also being able to focus on my stuff and kind of stay on my vision. I don't know if you ever relate to that, where like you're doing so good, you're on your vision, you're on your purpose, and then you start getting all these outside influences of ideas and opportunities. And next thing you know, you're off your purpose. And, I've dealt with a lot with anxiety, depression, different things like that. So I'm just being open with you. That has been one of my challenges in the past, like having a big network. It sounds like you're able to do it well.
You need a big network. I always say to some of my friends, keep your circle small and tight. In other words, you have a core group of people that you can trust. And, maybe I'm the type of guy that hey, John, thanks for stopping, that you can kind of say, hey, I can call the Pat twice a year because an opportunity exists. And that there's a trust. And then there are some people you could do with 20 people, and you could tell them, okay, go to this, buy this, do this. And then like 3 months later, they're like, oh yeah, I just never did it. I never got around to it. Well then, if you can't help yourself, I mean, I trust me, and I hate using the word depression. I have rough times too. I mean, the last couple months have been rough. There was a death in the community. A reseller passed away, and my mother-in-law passed away, and me beating up on myself, wanting to do better, and then you just got to, why am I doing this? I'm doing this, first of all, to have a better lifestyle for myself, take care of my family, and not get sidetracked with the negative distractions or the people that are going to drag you down.
Yeah, I hear you, man. And back to what you were saying too. I hope you're doing well, man. I'm sorry for your loss. Having a nice tight circle, I think that's important. And I definitely want to, continue to slowly expand my network, because, man, when I talk to people like you and, other resellers who are doing it, actually living it, man, you guys, we could all be so much more powerful, make so much more money, be happier, grow so much faster by sharing ideas. So many times we want to isolate ourselves as resellers and keep all the secrets to ourselves. And, yeah, man, you definitely help open my eyes up to a couple of things. So I appreciate you, man. And I'm grateful to have you on. I'm grateful for everybody. Mary, Ms. Braun, Sabrina, Donatella.
Yeah, there was like 90 people in here. So I do appreciate it. If you guys haven't checked out my channel,
subscribe to his channel.
Subscribe. I like to see Steve. Steve, you have a big channel, and I really like to see you. I think if the platform that you do, and you can inspire people, but the thing is, time and things that you do is not free. People got to value what you're doing and your efforts, and realize that, you know, what you're doing. And I hate that I see that sometimes on YouTube, that people are knocking people that are being successful. And you know, time is valuable.
And I'll say right now, I'm just being 100% honest. YouTube's it's changing. Like the community's changing, the algorithm's changing. I mean, man, I post videos on my channel. I'll be lucky to get a couple thousand views. Like I literally just posted a video on TikTok 2 days ago. It's got 900,000 views, man. Like it's
It's a different audience. And Steve, let me ask you something.
Interesting.
Are you doing anything on Facebook with videos?
I've done videos in the past on Facebook. It depends. Some of them do well. Some of them.
I know 2 other resellers, big channels, that I brought it up. I said, look, Facebook Facebook was perceived as being negative. So what can they do? They do Facebook Marketplace. They're doing videos to compete with YouTube. So they want to keep the audience. They don't want to have everything just political and negative on there. So basically what they're doing is they're really giving the community more stuff and the videos. And I know people now that are uploading videos onto Facebook and making more money even there than they were doing YouTube.
Yeah, because I heard about that. I heard about them opening up some type of monetization on Facebook.
Yeah, it's there. It's there. You just need 10,000 followers, and I have that. Look,
yeah,
you have a platform. You know, I remember when I first took over the restaurant, sometimes people would complain. I'll leave it at this. Some people would complain, and I'd be like, and a customer says to me, he says, Pat, don't worry about it. You're gaining more customers than you are losing. You know, so, you know, that's what you got to. So if 100 people love you and 2 people don't worry about those 2. Focus on the 100 that are supporting you, and realize the value in you, and that you can uplift them and do the right thing, and like you for you.
Man, I think that's a good way to end the show. That was beautiful, man. A lot of people had some great things to say about you in the comments. So if you guys haven't, go follow Pat. I put the link to his channel down below in the description. So show some love, show some support. I think we can all see through this video, Pat's generosity and Pat's authenticity. And I'm really excited, man, to see how things go for you in 2022. I hope you a lot of wealth and health, and good luck with the YouTube and everything, man.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Smash that like button. Go follow Pat on YouTube, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Appreciate you. Much love.